Welcome to The Business of Family, the podcast where we explore the stories, challenges, and opportunities of family businesses. I'm your host, Tammy Buss, and I'm a family business survivor and also a family business advisor. In this show, we will be talking with family business leaders and experts to bring you insights and inspiration so you too can survive your family business journey. Whether you're a founder, a successor, a professional, or just curious about family businesses, this podcast is for you. So today my guest is Ryan Berg. He's the co-president and owner of Lee Michaels Fine Jewelry. His career brought him to San Antonio in 2010 when Lee Michaels Fine Jewelry, his family business, founded by his father, Lee, in 1978, required his active direction of the San Antonio market. So thrilled with the opportunity to enjoy the rich history, strong sense of community, identity, and growing diversity of San Antonio community, Ryan moved his family from New Orleans to serve as the market president for Texas. So currently, there are 10 stores in 7 markets in 4 states: Louisiana, Texas, Mississippi, and New Mexico. And Ryan now serves as the owner and co-president and a member of the company's executive committee, along with his 2 brothers, developing a rich history in each of the communities it serves. So welcome, Ryan.
So Tammy, the one thing I want to just add is my dad also serves on that committee. So,
does he?
as
Good.
the founder and of the business, we like to keep him engaged and involved. Although those discussions are very high level, they don't get so granular like operationally.
Right. So let's start off, Ryan, by telling me a little bit about how the business began.
So mom and dad my dad used to work for Bailey Banks and Biddle years ago and traveled. And when he left Bailey Banks and Biddle, I think it was 1977 because he started the business in 1978. I was born in 1973, so I'm 52, and Scott's 3 years younger. But I was born in Philadelphia. Scott was in Princeton, New Jersey. And he moved a lot for Bailey Banks and Biddle. He was the head buyer for the whole division. And when he left, I moved back to Dallas, Texas, and was unemployed for almost a year. And my grandparents and my great-grandparents helped Dad start the first store in Baton Rouge, Louisiana at Cortana Mall in 1978.
Wow.
I remember hearing stories of, I was a little kid, and we lived in this really small apartment. The claim to fame is Too Tall Jones. For the people that are older, from the Dallas Cowboys, was a famous cowboy. He lived a couple doors down. I remember that being like the famous thing. But my grandmother helped my dad and my mom put SKUs on all the jewelry, and he bought an old green van. They called it the Green Machine, and he would drive it from Dallas to Baton Rouge to help inventory the store.
Oh, cool. So, when did the business really and the family really realize that this was a family business?
I think, growing up, I always had an opportunity, but not a right. Meaning I had an opportunity to come into the business, but it didn't mean I would ascend to the level that my brothers and I are today.
Mm-hmm.
We had to earn it. And in a lot of ways, Dad was harder on us than anyone else, just to make sure that we felt that, as opposed to feeling entitled. Because again, as a parent, I think that's, with my own kids, I think that's part of the journey of parenting, is to make sure that, what's that balance. So to answer the question, I think Dad always looked at this as a business that he wanted to transcend to the next generation. One of the things I've always admired, and one of the many things I appreciate, is Dad wanted a business, not a store. Mm-hmm. Meaning there's a lot of people that are in jewelry world that have one operational store, but he wanted to develop something that was more than one store that had multiple markets.
And when did that sort of vision begin? Did that begin sort of right from the beginning, or is it as you boys sort of came into the industry and into the business, it's like, okay, this needs to be really a business, not a store?
I think so he opened Baton Rouge, Louisiana in 1978. I want to say in the early 80s, he opened Shreveport, Louisiana. So he branched out fairly soon. And I remember he got an apartment up there. At first, he was spending a lot of time there, but then started to learn that he needed to rely on his people and develop people to help grow the business. So Scott and I were growing up, Chad, remember, is 13 years younger than I am and
Oh,
10 years
okay.
younger than Scott. Even though we're all today co-presidents, equal partners, um, it's been a little bit of a different journey for each of us.
Hmm.
And not to say one's better than the other, right? It's a different journey because of birth order. But Dad always wanted to make sure it was equal and level. If we had the desire, the knowledge, and the work ethic to do it, he wanted to make it equal.
And
So,
how did and how did the three of you then enter the business?
so we have a family charter that it's evolved over time, but we had to had to get our undergrad, had to become a graduate gemologist because Dad always felt it was important that we had some gemology expertise as we came in, and then also having some knowledge outside of our business. Being the owner's son, and again, my dad is Lee Michael Berg, so that's where the name Lee Michaels comes from.
Hmm.
Is making sure we came in with some knowledge, right, and uh, some sort of a institutional background so that we can come in and really benefit the business. So I personally spent 2 years in New York City working for one of the largest diamond cutters in the world in Rockefeller Plaza. I spent about a year and a half in Connecticut, and I've also worked for a jeweler down in Florida. So really making sure that we didn't come in as the ascending as we are ascending to the next ring of leadership. It
Hmm.
was more here we come in at the baseline and work our way up.
Hmm. And what about your brothers? How did they enter?
Scott, very much the same way, and Chad. So we all had, and now our family charters have to work 2 years out of
Hmm.
the business that's like-minded or approved by the family. You've got to have your gemologist degree. So we have a structure in place to make sure that it's an birth opportunity, not a birthright. So depending on how
Right.
you want to ascend and where you want to go.
And how does that work then for the next generation that's coming up? Because I know you have two boys who are adults.
Yeah,
And
very much the same way. They have to work outside the business. Right now, my oldest, Zach, is working for us part-time. He goes to Trinity. And as part-time, they can work for us, and he's going to school. So we have
Mhm.
a unique opportunity. Scott's middle child, Jacob, has worked through Christmas at the store as well. So we're trying to get them involved. We have family meetings once a year with the Gen 3, so they understand what opportunities lie ahead, and if that's something they're interested in, and how do they pursue their dream if that's part of the dream.
I love that. One of the things that we really promote is family meetings, and they're different than dining room table meetings. These are actually meetings that you can discuss what the future looks like, what you want to achieve as a family. So I'm really happy to hear that you do that. Now, when you have these family meetings, is it the entire families that come in? So is it the spouses and like all the children of your siblings?
Yeah, it's the whole family. We have a facilitator, and we probably have two or three Zoom or Teams meetings before as my brothers and I and my dad. But then also she'll interview each of the other family branches, so our wives and then our children. And we want to
Mm.
make sure that it's a cohesive discussion and we're hitting on important topics because, for example, my youngest Adam is really interested in finance, so we're going to probably create a finance day and work with our CFO and understand what the financial side of our business is. So it's really curtailing the needs and desires of the whole family and
I love that.
understanding a better baseline. So, and they're very impressionable, right? Because
Yeah.
right now, most of them are in college. The older ones are in college. Scott's got a younger one who is in high school, and then Chad has three who are still in grade school. So, and a
Oh, yeah.
newborn. So we
Yeah.
have a huge spread.
So, yeah, that's a big spread. So, what's it like working with your brothers as co-leaders?
I think what's important to say, I said there's four things that can always cause conflict in any family business. It's time off, which we have in work ethic, right? So that's not an issue. It's money. We all make exactly the same amount of money. So we got that off the table. It's ego. And what's great about our business is with so many stores spread out in so many states, we can satisfy each other's needs, and we have different roles and responsibilities. So there's a little overlap, but we have to come together at least twice a week on a teams, and we talk about strategy and discussions. And then the final one is spouses. and our spouses cannot work in the business.
Mm-hmm.
Now, not to say my wife on our holiday party or special event, she comes in and she's a huge help to me because she knows all of our friends, but she can't come in and work every day, punch a clock. So I think that is important. And the other thing that I really lean into is being in a family business. In some families, you can get an argument with your sibling and not have to talk for a week or a month or whatever and just be upset. Well, the business is the glue that forces us to talk through issues, because as partners, if we can't work through it, then it can affect the business. If we take care of the business will take care of the family.
Right. Now, you mentioned that your dad is still part of some of the committees. Now, have you transitioned 100% of the ownership from your dad to the three of you?
So the three of us own the business 100%, and that happened probably about 6 or 7 years ago. Don't hold me to the exact timeline, but I think it was 6 or 7 years ago. And since then, the business is probably a top line revenue and bottom line is more than quadrupled. And a lot of that isn't because of the transition necessarily, because in business, I think it's luck, it's timing, it's hard work, right? And Dad is still part of the process, but we've been very fortunate to have this opportunity and really grow the business.
Well, and that's good because, when you have three siblings working together, a lot of times there's a lot of different personalities. You work in a different way, and it can cause, as you say, some issues sometimes. So how do you divide the roles? Because as
So,
co-presidents, I mean, you have a job description, you have a title, and then you have a job description. So how do you determine the job description for each of you when you have the same titles?
I'm going to just take it to the next level. Is I had a very good friend of mine who runs a very big operation. It's very structural. He says, "Tell me about your corporate structure." And I said, "It's like spaghetti, right?" I'll tell you the reason why it works is we don't like turnover. So we have people that have been with us a long time and understand where they need to go. For example, we all have a part of buying. We all have a buying aspect. So family members involved in any purchase we do. We've got a vice president of merchandising and marketing, which reports to one of my brothers, but one of the buyers might report to me. So that buyer knows that if any order gets approved, she comes to me, not necessarily our VP of merchandising, but she knows when she needs to go to him for something. So it works. Is it the most streamlined? Probably not. But are we making better decisions collectively? Yes. We're all very different, which is why it works well for the three of us. And really, I think the benefit we have is we have a tag-along clause, which is part of our structure. So meaning if two of the brothers wants to go a direction and the third doesn't, we go that direction. I will tell you, we don't always get along behind closed doors, but we really, I think, thrive. It's important that our communities, our team members, and our vendors and our partner suppliers know that we're unified. So in a closed door, we might have a disagreement or not necessarily all line up. When we leave, we all line up. And that's an important part of our family structure.
And that's a very hard thing to do because, as you say, with the tag-along clause, if two agree all the time on something and one doesn't, it can sometimes feel that you're being ganged up on. And how does that work when there's, it's a tag-along? Have you ever had that discussion or argument that's like, well, you two always go against me?
Tammy, we're really fortunate because we're all so different and we're all so type A that not one of us are complacent. So it's not going to be, we've not encountered that. It's interesting in having the founder and our dad still involved, and especially on the strategy calls. He's getting less. I mean, he's still very engaged, and we want to keep him engaged because he's in his mid to upper 70s and still has his capacity and very with it. And we want to keep him that way. And I think that's important to him. So we want to be respectful of that. But in any transition, you truly don't know what happens until that component's is no longer there. And that'll be a sad day for all of us. And I think there's enough at this point, we've been doing it long enough that we're in a pattern, right? So we've created a pattern that's working.
So it sounds like you have the family structure pretty good because you have these family meetings and you look at the future, you look at what you want to do as a family, and that you have the business structure working really well. What about the ownership structure? Do you have governance around the ownership? Do you have like who can and can't be owners? What that, you've talked about who can come into the business, but it's easy when there's three brothers and you grew up in the same, well, almost in the same house. I guess if there's a gap of that big. My husband's one of 10, so there's a huge gap between the oldest and the youngest. Like they weren't even in the same house together. But you are siblings. And then when you're going to the next generation, now you've got, the expansion of, three siblings with their children and trying to figure out what that looks like moving forward. Because as siblings, you can all agree, but now you've got cousins involved. So have you had those discussions about what that looks like for future ownership?
So we have. So first off, you have to be a blood descendant. So like our wives can't have necessarily ownership. Currently, there's puts and calls. We're actually updating all this now.
Hmm.
We've created, we each bought some life insurance to ease some of the pressure. God forbid one of us at our demise prematurely, our wives would be taken care of. So there's not extra pressure necessarily on the business. We are creating a family office with some alternative investments as well.
Hmm.
So that, we always take care of the corpus, which is the operating business, but how can we spin off some of the profits and make sure we do it in a prudent way so we don't, we don't want to do, we always say take care of the business and the business will take care of the family. So
Hmm.
we're looking at how do we make sure we take care of the business, but also take care of the family. And if one of our descendants don't want to come into the business, are there other ways they can be involved? And part of that's a family office. Are there other aspects of keeping people engaged? And that's what we're navigating now.
Hmm.
We're also updating the buy-sell agreements because the way it was set up originally, Dad had the full leadership control. He didn't want to transition the business and for us to necessarily not earn the stock. So we had stock, but if we would have stepped away, there was a major depreciation and things like that so that he could get some of that out of his estate. But yet, God forbid we left, it didn't make us wealthy, right? So he had some ways to make sure we didn't overtake one way or another. Having said that, what we're looking at now that I'm 52, about to be 53, what does retirement look like for me? How do we make sure there's a position for my children if they want to come in? And if they don't, what does that look like? And
Hmm.
what can the company afford? And how does that transition look?
Yeah.
I can tell you at 52, I'm not looking to retire anytime soon. I would like to slow down a little. And we have every intention that is to keep this business in the family.
Hmm. And that, that's very important when you look at what you're trying to do and you sound like a textbook case of what to do as a family business because you've got the governance in place. You're aware of the things you have to put in place. You're aware of the pitfalls if something happens to one of you to understand, if you want to be in the business or not in the business. And it becomes more complex as you get deeper into the generations and there's more bodies involved in terms of, well, you can't all be necessarily want to be involved in the business. If there's 10 of you, 8 might like to be and 2 might not. Well, what does that look like? So I'm really glad that you're exploring this already. But now that you look at this and you've quadrupled this business, since you've taken over ownership, what is the vision going forward?
If I could just back up real quick, Tammy, is I think where my brothers and I are very fortunate is our dad had the foresight of the transition and what that looked like. Because
Hmm.
I have friends that are in family businesses or have heard case studies where the founder stays on or that generation stays on to a point where the next generation isn't properly prepared, doesn't have the exposure, doesn't know how to make decisions, doesn't have a decision tree process in place. A lot of where we are today is really to our dad's vision and abilities to work through these things, right? That's where we are today.
Your dad should be on the speaking circuit. Honestly, he should be talking about what to do because it sounds like he's done everything just perfect, which is
When
incredible.
Well, and I can tell you this because I know my dad well enough, Tammy, and us. I don't think anything we've done is perfect, and I think we're not anywhere near. It's an
No, okay,
evolution.
yeah, I agree with that. But I can tell you, I talk to a lot of families, and there's a lot of things that they have not done or waited too long to do. And it sounds like your dad was very much a visionary. not just from a business perspective, but a continuity perspective on how to continue this business into future generations. So having said that, then what is your vision moving forward?
You know, it's interesting you say that, and let me just kind of timeline out. At 52, soon to be 53, and my youngest brother is 40. He's almost like Gen 2.5,
Hmm.
right? Because he's a conduit for my kids and Scott's kids in that next generation. So it's a really interesting and creates more complexity because if the three
Hmm.
of us were almost the same age, that there's the cliff would be much shorter. Now the cliff is much longer, and what does that look like for the next generation? You know, I think our vision as a family, our unified family, is to keep it in the family. Now, how that looks going forward, we don't know. One thing I
Hmm.
think we all agree on is I don't think there'd be three co-presidents running the business going forward. I think at some
Hmm.
point because each household you have different I wouldn't say all of our core values are lined up, but you have different work ethics, different backgrounds. The
Yeah.
three of us having the same mom and dad has been and that continuity has been, I think, positive for the three of us. And sometimes, you know, it can create having three co-presidents can slow things down, but also we make, I think, better decisions, which has helped us grow the way we have.
Hmm.
But I don't know if the future is going to be that way. I see, and I think my brother and I
Yeah.
agree, it's going to be probably one person, and we're going to evolve to a board of governors that's going to
Yes.
oversee. That's the next iteration, and I would say that's part of what we're working on now. We don't necessarily need it today, but we're going to start
Hmm.
working on that process because there's going to be a steep learning curve, whoever's on that,
Right.
and some of this
Right.
might be outside family members.
Well, absolutely. The capabilities and the skills. And I was going to ask you that about the governance side and the board. And do you have a board set up now? Because really it's the board that, has the vision that then the business implements, right? So the business implements a strategic vision. And when you're a family business in your first, second, third generation, a lot of times you're both. You're on the board giving direction, but you're also doing the implementing at the business level. So sometimes it's hard to separate the two to say this is who we are. So, there's lots of opportunities there for next gens to be sitting with the right education and training on a board level and being able to give strategic direction to the business, but not involved in day to day. Because sometimes you need to go for outside skill, right? And like you say, three co-presidents, that's fine because you're siblings, but that's a very difficult thing to do. And I've had families who have, three owners, but what they've done is come down a level and put somebody up above in the CEO role. And then they run divisions and sort of report, but they also sit on the board. So it's interesting me to talk to people who have different structures. And I love the fact that you are looking at changing that for, the next generation. So how many in total are there for the next generation then? I know you said five. How many does your second brother have?
So it's I have two.
Two.
Scott's got three, and then Chad's got three.
Okay, so there's
And
eight in the next gen, which is a lot different than dealing with three siblings when you have eight cousins.
yeah, and today we do. So just so you know, my brothers, my dad, and our chief information officer Jane Harrington, who's been with us a number of years. That's kind of like the working board now.
Hmm.
To your point, that's going to evolve. And some of the Gen 3 are not interested in the business. My
Hmm.
youngest at this point isn't interested, but that's why we're like, well, let's make finance day as the business grows.
Right.
Could there be a need at some point? And what's important to, I think, us as it was to dad is that as a family integrates into the business, we want to make sure that our team members still have a place and also feel as though they can grow with the business.
Hmm.
What we don't want to do, we want to do what's right for the business, not just the family.
Well, and the other thing to look at is that, there's a family enterprise here. It's not just the operating company, right? Because as you say, you might be wanting to put a little bit of money aside. Well, that money might be invested in property. It might be involved in another business. It might be used to fund a niece or nephew or child's new business. So it becomes as the business evolves and is successful, becomes more of a look at the family enterprise, which is again, all of those things that encompasses the family. So it's the operating companies, the holding companies, the real estate, the deferred assets, the jewelry, the art. I mean, how do you divide a painting into three, right? Maybe it's part of a trust. Like there's so many different areas and then you can bring the next generation because they might be looking after the real estate portfolio because they love that or the investment portfolio. And I guess that evolution into the family office is where you can really incorporate that third gen or fourth or fifth and moving forward.
And I hope that, and my brothers and I are working through this now with dad, but I would hope there would be some conduit for the glue to keep the family together, because I don't know if I don't believe the next Gen 3 are all going to be in this business, which is okay, right? I mean, I've always said, as long as my kids pay taxes and they're law-abiding citizens, I don't care what they do. They need to understand that their lifestyle might be different than mine and my wife's, because what they earn is how their lifestyle needs to be. But as long as they're law-abiding citizens and paying taxes, I want them to be happy, and that's the most important thing as a father.
Well, and the thing is that, you look at the family business and a lot of people will throw the baby out with the bathwater instead of saying, you know what, it's a pretty good investment. We just need to hire somebody to run it. We don't need to actually be involved in it day to day. We can still own it because it's a great investment. And I think that's one of the things as a family business advisor that I'm trying to, educate families and advisors on, is that there's an opportunity to keep the business within the family, or maybe, selling off part of it because you need the extra talent or the merger or the growth. But it's still, if it's a good investment, why would you get rid of it because your kid doesn't want to manage it? Right.
Well, the challenge you're going to have in our business, Tammy, in particular, is it's so service driven. Our clients, our guests, our friends like to deal with ownership. I mean, we're dealing 6 and sometimes 7-figure transactions, and I think that involvement, like for example, when I call the corporate office, because each of us office out of a store, then we convene into the corporate office, and we each have an office there. So it's not as though we're not present, but we also believe you lead from the front, not from behind. And if I call, I try to make sure I know everybody's name when they pick up, when they answer the phone. I think we send birthday cards. Each brother each year takes the birthday cards, and we send a personalized birthday card to every one of our associates. We alternate months on service years. So one month might be my month, and I call every associate and wish them happy anniversary. So that personalized touch is so critical. And when you look at businesses like Zales, I mean, we could go through a mirage of different retail type of establishments. When ownership is not as engaged, not as involved, you lose some of that personal touch.
Right.
That makes you different. And I think that's part of our secret sauce. I don't know if it's secret, but part of the sauce of success is that we're all engaged. Not only are we engaged, we're engaged at the store level. So when we go to market to buy, we can be like, well, I know so-and-so might like this. So we understand trends. We're not sitting in an office just pulling levers. We're actually out in the front lines, understanding what's going on.
That's amazing. Well, I can't believe we're actually out of time. There's a lot of, I'd love to talk about this more. It's amazing what your family has done. But I do like to end every podcast with 3 pieces of advice. So if you were to give other family businesses or family enterprises 3 pieces of advice, what would it be?
It's a blessing and a curse, and more days, more blessing than curse. Work through the issues. Don't make a decision based on emotion. So there's a lot of times where, and especially family knows how to create emotion. Make sure you step back, get the emotional side out of it, and work through it. And then I guess the third is make sure your partner, your spouse is bought into the dream with you and supports you. Because without my wife and her support through the years, I couldn't be where I am today.
I love that. And all 3 of those are very hard sometimes to get all together. So thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate you coming on the show today. And what is the website of your jewelry stores?
It's www.lmf.jewelry.com. So it's Lee Michaels Fine Jewelry, the first letter of each word, www.lmfj.com. And I want to thank you, Tammy, for having me on. I appreciate it. And I feel honored and privileged to be part of your podcast.
If you like this episode, subscribe to the Business of Family podcast on your favorite listening platform. You can also find Blue Roots on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. On the next show, I'll be back with another amazing guest who will inspire you with their family business insights. Until then, take care and keep it in the family. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered legal, tax, investment, or insurance advice. Before acting on any advice, please contact your personal or company advisors.